Hello, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this video. Thank you for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. I actually am doing a part 3 of a little energy update. I've been doing what I can with the time that I have, so a lot of times I'll pop on for 15-20 minutes and then I get cut off and don't get to ever finish the video that I had done before. But I find it ironic because really that's what it feels like right now. There is no beginning and end. It's just like next, next, next. That's one of my least favorite things when I'm working with the client, whether it be in body work or yoga, is that question, what's next? What's next? Because it tells me that the person isn't being present with what they're experiencing. And that's, I think, kind of it in a nutshell. Are we being present with what we're experiencing now, or are we worried about what's next? And I would say definitely from a human perspective, I always wonder what's next as well. And part of that wonder is what keeps us excited and keeps life moving from one perspective. But the key is being in stillness so that we can experience what we're experiencing before we go on to what's next. Or another way of looking at it is being present with what we're experiencing so we can kind of foresee, in some cases, what may be coming next, if that makes sense. Sometimes we know what's coming next because it feels like it's already here. So for me, processing and integrating lately, it's like I'm already feeling, okay, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm integrating, but what is next is already here. I just rolled right into it, didn't I? So I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what I had spoken about yesterday. There's so much I could cover, and I would like to do an hour-long video as soon as I'm able, and I have enough time throughout my day. I'll just, the word that had been coming up in my previous video, and yes, I do have a previous video. I know the video before I said, oh, watch my previous video, and then I deleted it, is combative. Is it combative or combative? Combative. Sometimes I make up my own words. And the key to this word for me, when I play with this word, is there's this frequency for a lot of people of fight or flight, run away or fight. And we're being invited to stabilize so that we don't really have to run from it or fight against it or fight up against someone else. What is it that we're feeling combative with in ourselves, and how is that reflecting around us to show us perhaps what may be out of alignment within? As within, so without. We're seeing it play out. I mentioned this in the last video on the mainstream quite a bit. And for me, that is rebirth. Okay, that if I were to pull an animal card right now, that's the energy that I would associate what's going on right now with. I always think of bat as using as other senses than just what we can see our two eyes with. In addition to that, I have a little bit of a delay. In addition to that, I see bat as rebirth, which I've already said, living in a cave. Think about what a bat does, it hangs upside down. So looking at things from a different perspective, upside down, flip it and reverse it. Things feel upside down right now. So let's look at things from that perspective rather than trying to bring ourselves right side up when nothing else around us is right side up. Maybe we are right side up and everything else is upside down. Feeling into and bouncing back. I don't know if it's sonar that they use, but that's what I keep getting the message about, is sonar. And this is also play on words. I keep hearing sonar, solar. So again, I'll talk briefly. The sun is ramping up almost every day, and there is no one thing or energy from my perspective that the sun is offering, because each of us is on our own unique individual path. For some of us, it's root, and I'll talk about that briefly. My last video, I talked about what some people in different age groups who have had different experiences are going through right now. And in my last video, I touched briefly on war veterans and the elderly men and women who might have been involved directly or indirectly with, combat in their lives. I want to talk a little bit about children and basically all age groups, because I said that what we're experiencing, what a mother might be experiencing, may be different than what a father's experiencing. Sometimes those roles have felt reversed recently. So, and that's another subject that's coming up. So the sun is not just offering us one particular activation, whereas years ago, many of us as intuitives, or whatever we want to call it, connected to the galactic messengers, message bringers, may have said, okay, the sun is coming in, therefore we're having the solar flare, therefore our root and sacral is going to be what's stirred up right now. And while I would agree with that right now, because I do feel there's a lot of womb healing that's going on, I would also say there's a lot of root clearing and healing that is going on. Any distortions held anywhere within the body, from my perspective, are coming up. So I get on here and I won't just say, oh, we're having a root chakra revival. It's everything, because it's not just that. It's the heart, it's the throat, it's everything that's connected, and all things are connected. So while at times there may be a collective or a portion of us who are experiencing sacral or womb clearing and healing, that may be something that we've held within our own bodies or ancestral agreements to assist in clearing. Others are not feeling that at all. They're feeling their heart open, emotions, crying for no reason, feeling anger come up, right? Which isn't necessarily connected to the womb. It could be connected to the solar plexus. Some people are having crown activations and openings right now, feeling more connected to something bigger than themselves from one perspective. And I could go into each of these layers and dissect or compartmentalize those as well. So I would say yes to all of this. I've had people who've been experiencing more nightmares. So I'll talk briefly about the astral, because from one perspective, the astral is perfectly fine. It is what it's supposed to be. Yes, there are very many distortions in the astral, and some might refer to the astral as fourth dimensional. I see them as separate yet intrinsically interwoven. I'll do a video and show what I was shown. I'll just briefly describe what it looks like. I was shown, let's say, a line, and within that line are bubbles. My bubbles, everything I'm shown is bubble related. And so these bubbles were strung on a string, let's say, and they all interconnect. Yet one bubble over here is not necessarily touching the bubble down the string. Yet if there's a ripple on the string, all the bubbles are affected, right? And let's say that string is, well, I'll have to draw it, but let's say that string is the astral, or let's say it's 4D. Let's just not compartmentalize, because the astral realm is not necessarily just connected to one dimension. The fourth dimension is not necessarily connected only to 3 and 5. We can still feel into the fourth dimension when we're in a higher realm from another perspective. And I guess that would take me into a completely different right? A completely different message. But I just want to paint a picture because I feel that sometimes in the spiritual community, we separate things. And what are we looking at going on around us? A lot of separation, a lot of compartmentalizing, a lot of extreme correction to that separation and compartmentalizing. A lot of extreme correction to one particular way things have been. Okay, no, it's this way now, which incorporates all of those things. But it only incorporates all of those things based on how we feel it should now. But that's not necessarily the truth of all of those things. It's only what we're... Okay, it's another video. Boo, squirrel. So I was speaking a little bit into the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Correcting the distortions is overcorrecting right now. So we're seeing a lot of overcorrection from one perspective to try to bring into harmony and balance the internal and external. And we're seeing the overcorrection primarily in the external, in the physical, right? And this is not necessarily happening in the internal realms. And so people are overcorrecting in the physical, but that's a whole other can of worms. And this is no judgment about what someone feels or doesn't feel is the right way to present this particular portion or bubble of reality. So these bubbles that are connected on this string are all connected, yet one bubble is so far away from the other bubble that they don't necessarily see or understand how they could be connected to that other bubble on this linear string. But then if you bubble that up and bubble it out, like bubble wrap, all the bubbles are connected. So if one bubble pops on that string, all of the bubbles are actually feeling the reverberation of that happening. So that's what we are like oftentimes in this version of reality. There's many different bubbles, aka us, aka our versions of reality, that are all connected to this string, which is actually connected to many other strings. But we'll linearize it for a moment and say 4D or the astral. Not to say that the astral is 4D, yet they are intrinsically interwoven from what I've been shown. And I'm not here to talk just about, okay, we're going from this dimension to this dimension. What I've been shown is how can we navigate all of the dimensions with self-mastery and not try to bypass one or the other, because some of these dimensional existences and programs have been created for us to integrate, clear, and create from, or to remap so that we can recreate from a different version of that reality. And I know I kind of just went into several different layers here, so hopefully you're following where I'm going with this, feeling what I'm putting down. So one of the things that I've been shown is that we are multidimensional beings, but we're here on planet Earth, but there are multidimensional versions of Earth. There are multidimensional versions of us. We are that multidimensional version. And in every given moment, it's like we're popping a bubble, and where do we go when that bubble pops? Well, we're inside of another bubble. I guess I'll have to do a whole thing on bubble wrap. But without going too deeply into compartmentalizing what that means, how can we keep it simple? Well, going back to the basics, which are feel into the body, find out what the body needs. We might be going into bilocation, trilocation, but we're also processing things that maybe we've held in our system from when we were 10 years old. We're processing things that have been distorted in our field, maybe on Earth, not necessarily in our body, but from a program that we had when we were 10 years old, right? So all of this is coming up for us, whether that be root, sacral, heart, solar plexus, throat, crown is relevant. So recognizing it, and also recognizing that it's also connected to all of these other areas in our body, as within, so without. So this also means places and spaces on the earth as well as in the cosmos. Everything is connected. So as we go through this phase, and I hear phase lock, signature frequency combining to expand out the combination methodology and locks of vibrancy. I could play with this. It's all play on words. So we're finding different methods. As we do this, we clear out the old methods, the old methodology, the old ideologies, the old dogmas, right? And we move into that home-based signature frequency that allows us to create new methodology from one perspective. But the more fluid we can be, the more alchemical we can be, the more creative we can be, the less combative we are with what's happening in our bodies and around our bubbles of reality. And the more we're able to move into this rebirth and this stage of rebirth. So children are experiencing something very different perhaps than, and I'm going to come back to the beginning of this because I only have about 10 more minutes. Children are perhaps, from one perspective, you're going to just be in the dark with me for a minute as I sit at this stoplight. They may be experiencing or processing past life traumas, or let's not call them traumas, although that's sometimes what they are. Memories, cellular memories of being in battle. When I was younger, I dreamed all the time of being in a warrior and doing these being in battle, and I would have these nightmares. And I realized that some of those battles were being done on the astral realm. Some of those battles had been done in other versions of reality. Some had been my past lives, and some had been, we could call it a parallel reality that I was in the process of integrating or bilocating into. I mean, I could go into so many different realms, but children are also going through this in some form. Not all children. Some children are coming in and don't have any of that. They're karma free. Some children are, oh boy, that takes me into a whole other can of worms. Worm down the wormhole. But what I wanted to express was we're all going through this process in our own way. And not to mention what a professional male or female who's in their, what they may have already expressed their professional life, they've already been married, have grandchildren, are perhaps in what we might refer to as retirement age, are very different than what a younger child who has to be in school right now, what they might be experiencing. Oops. Sorry, I didn't realize I was still recording. But either way, recognizing we're all in different stages, and if we look at it from that angle, perspective, we can bring it into whatever age we're in as we're experiencing and expressing these, that it's different for everyone. Some of us are in the process of finding our inner child. Some of us are feeling very mature. Some of us are feeling into like it's a completely different life than it was a year ago. And that's, again, another can of worms. So if we can look at this from a very compassionate perspective and recognize that not everyone is experiencing what we're experiencing, yet everyone is experiencing something in their own way. We may not understand what that something is, and we may not necessarily know, but I make that assumption. And again, that's a play on words, because I always play with assumption, right? It's never good to assume. What is I think my mom used to say, assuming makes an ass out of me and of you, which is true to a certain extent. But recognizing from my perspective right now, it's safe to assume that everybody's going through something. I have 5 minutes. So if we're assuming that, we're less likely to be combative with someone who is perhaps unaware. Now I'm going to go into that a little deeper. I say unaware because I say everybody's going through something, but that doesn't mean that everybody's aware that they're going through it. Children tend to be more aware because they just naturally process it. Teenagers, though, might be going through a lot of angst right now. They're going through hormonal changes. They're going through, well, all of us are going through hormonal changes right now. Many of us are going through heightened cortisol release. Many people are going through life reviews right now. They're looking back at their life and comparing and contrasting. Many people are having memories come up of what's happened to them in this lifetime or previous lifetime. So that does change the hormonal signature frequency in the body. It changes how we interact with our body and our environment, and vice versa, how that appears to interact with us. So recognizing that is something that happens. When I had my Kundalini activation, or my pineal gland popped, everything flooded in, and my hormones from a cortisol perspective, and I'm sure everything else in my body, was completely out of whack comparatively to what it was before. All of a sudden, nothing was in balance for me. So recognizing that that's happening for some people. And I just want to kind of throw it all out there because, and I might do a separate video where I break some of this down more on an individual basis, but I just want to share that from what I'm seeing is everything. We're seeing our multidimensional versions of us now in our own way, from our own perspective. So staying on track, staying in that space where we recognize where are we blocking our rebirth right now into this new version of us. And when I say rebirth, I also hear transformation, like a butterfly. So moving into that state, right? Where are we blocking being able to stay present with what we are moving through? What I've been recognizing in teenagers is I guess a sense of security. Well, I think I'm going to go into a completely different video on that because it's very different than someone who's served in the military and is retired, you know? But at the same time, it's equally powerful and valid because every stage of life that we're in, so this is what I'm being guided to kind of end on. When I say every stage of life that we're in, we think that there's that separation, but I'm seeing a lot of my clients who are in the retirement stage of life actually finding and remembering their inner child. So it's like they feel like a teenager again. Some of the teenagers are feeling really old because they feel like they know more than their parents, or they're feeling really old because they're tired and burdened with what's happening with their bodies and with what's going on in the schools and what's going on with their friends. So back to the basics. Supportive versus combative. How can I support my body? How can I support Mother Earth? How can I be supportive of my friends and family without taking it on myself? Because recognizing that we are each going through this individual experience, we don't need to take on whatever it is they're going through and do it for them. That's not what this is about. This is about allowing our journey to unfold and allowing others' journeys to unfold for them as well, without feeling the need to direct them on where they need to be battling. Because their internal battle, I'm just using combat as this, whatever they're combating against may be very different than what our experience is, what our knowledge is, and what we are combating against. Therefore, their perspective is very different than the perspective that we hold. So the more we can let go and not hold on so tightly to a particular perspective or dogma or belief, the easier it will be to maintain our own ability to see more clearly and to maintain our own ability to move through these frequencies with as much grace as possible. And I'm going to end on that note. In the next video, I'll go into a little bit about what I'm seeing kind of unfolding for this entire month. Even though we're not necessarily in that place where we can exactly predict what's going to happen, because we are in a completely different relationship with time. Whew. All right, so take a deep breath in, nice long exhale, come back into the heart, come back into versus combat or fight against. This internal struggle that's reflecting on the external struggle can be moved into a space of resilience, a space of heartfelt coherence. Spend time outside, spend time in play with our children, with our pets. Color in a coloring book. The more we can tune into our inner wisdom, the more we feel into the resources that our in tune internal knowingness is offering us, especially as we release these bubbles, these struggle bubbles. Because as we burst these bubbles and as we allow more light to come in and more light to move out versus just shadow, because as we burst a bubble of shadow, that opens to the light. And that's a combination that can then move us through whatever it is we need to move through, that perhaps we've been ignoring, avoiding, evading. And this gives us more reflective space. It gives us more space, no matter how you slice it, no matter how you look at it. And it gives us the ability to move through this space that we're in a much more, the word I keep hearing is resilient, in a higher resonance, a higher sound. And then we hear the sonar. We see it. I know hearing it is not exactly, but we hear the ping that's down the line on that bubble string. And we start to feel into the next wave, but we are already prepared for it. It doesn't knock us off our feet quite in the same way, because we've gained momentum and we've gained space by recognizing that we're not trying to gain anything. Yet at the same time, it gives us that gain, if you will. I'm seeing that commercial where the woman smells the gain. It's like, stop and smell the gain. Stop and smell how much, that's the soap or whatever, how far we've come and how much we are gaining in this ability to be present. And it's not this, I've got to get ahead, what's next? Stop and smell the roses. All right. In love and light, guys. Namaste.